Welcome to the Jet Fuel Podcast, a series of Concord conversations. In each episode, our lead pastor and a guest will sit down and dive a little deeper into what we learned as a church that week. These are honest, practical conversations to fuel your faith and help you live it out with purpose and consistency. Or, in other words, this is jet fuel for your soul.
All right. Well, welcome back to Jet Fuel, Concord's podcast, where we are fueling your faith for everyday life.
That's right. That is not just theology for Sunday mornings, but actually how we shape our life throughout the week.
Man, that's great. Now, some of you, if you're listening and not watching, you're trying to figure out that voice. We've had a couple of different voices lately, but that is our student director, Miles. You've made a couple of appearances on the podcast.
That's right. I am like the special McRib guest. You know, I'm back, but for a limited time, so it's always good to be back.
So I will bet every student that listens to this will be calling you the McRib from now on. The special time only. All right. Well, very cool. We're going to be today, Miles and I talking through one of the coolest passages in Mark, but Mark chapter 6. But before we get there, as always, we have our question from off camera today, Miss Bree Simmons.
Right.
Glad to have you back doing the question for us. So what do we got today?
Okay, well, it's going to be a little bit of a different format.
Different.
We're going to play it a little bit more of a game than just one question.
All right.
So, you know the game like this or that.
This or that. Love
Kind
it,
of.
because I have an opinion on everything.
Exactly. So that's why I saw this and thought of you.
Okay, very cool.
So, so I'm just going to, we have 5 of them. I'm just going to say
Is it the first
one.
person that answers wins, or
No, you
how does
just
this work?
say what your opinion is, and if you
Okay.
disagree with each other, we
So
can
the two
hash
student
that
ministry
out
guys
too.
that run this, we don't have to go to one side of the room or the other, right?
No,
Like
you
We don't have to
Yeah.
get up and
We
walk.
don't
I
have to
thought
get
that was going to be
about
really
it.
hard for the podcast for this
Right.
or that being on different
Yeah.
sides of the room.
No. We can just talk about it. Okay,
right.
so the first one is coffee or tea?
Oh, that is so easy.
We're both drinking coffee right now.
Yes, coffee right now, which Miles roasted.
That's
correct?
right.
This
I roast
is
my own beans. Yeah.
You roast your own coffee. I drink
Fresh
Keurig coffee all the time, all day, every day. And he's like, this is going to be better. And I'm pleasantly surprised. It is really good.
Thank
But
you.
coffee, and which is crazy because I spend a lot of time traveling to England and they do tea a lot, but I've tried it. I just can't get down with it. So definitely for me, coffee.
Yep. Coffee for me as well.
All right. What
right.
else we got?
Mountains or beach? Like if you're going to go, I mean, we live in the mountains, but if you're going to go on vacation.
I'm a little biased here. Like, I don't like going to the beach because all you can do is like sit or walk in the ocean. Whereas you go to the mountains and you can explore, you know, different lakes, you can hike, you can fish, you can do all sorts of things.
Yeah. I'm going strongly mountains for 2 main reasons. Number one, I hate sand. All right. Here's the thing. Sand gets on everything. Like you just drive up to the beach before you even get into the place you're staying. You're like, there is sand in the
already sand.
pillowcases. Like, how does that happen?
Yep.
Don't
true.
do sand whatsoever. It's pretty. It's great, but mountains. But the second one is I have watched way too much Shark Week. We are like Shark Week fanatics. And I am just assuming my time is coming to be eaten by a shark if I'm in the ocean. That's their domain, not mine. I am staying in the mountains 100%.
I'll
you
take
go.
mountains as well.
Mountains. All right. See, we're 2 for 2 together.
Miles' real reason he doesn't like the beach is because his head gets burned, the top of his head. where his
Oh,
little
my
spot is.
goodness.
You're not wrong, but ouch.
Wow. That was a bald joke already.
Just
we hadn't even made
kidding,
it
just kidding.
very far.
Okay,
Dang.
early mornings or late night?
Oh,
We are going to differ here.
Oh,
I was
this
gonna
is-
say, I already know Clint's answer.
I don't even know if there is a late night. Like I am just, after dinner, the next thing is bed. That's it. And so I am early mornings. Give me 4 a.m., 4:30. Give me 2 hours before the sun ever comes up. That is like my time. I think that's the time everybody should meet with the Lord. The sun rises. Yeah, early mornings, late nights. I was raised in a house that nothing good happens after midnight. I'm going to take it further. Like nothing good happens after 9:45. Like I'm just, I say, go to bed and get up tomorrow. There's lots of shaking heads behind the camera here because I think I'm the only one in this room that's agreeing with that.
No, I
will-
love early mornings.
I won't
personally.
stay past midnight, but I will stay up late. Of just my brain function continues to get better and better throughout the day. and then about 11 o'clock, it
Oh,
just
don't
drops
schedule
off.
a meeting with me after 2 p.m. Like, if you want the best that I have to bring to the table, creativity, decision-making, discernment, it is happening before the afternoon happens at all. So
Good to know.
let me ask this. So you said late nights. I'm getting off your questions. We're going to come back. But in 2026, all right, you're an adult.
Yep.
You're about to get married.
Yeah.
Like, you are not a kid anymore. In 2026, what is the latest you have stayed up? Like, I mean, are we talking like, you're like, oh yeah,
Student weekend
midnight?
doesn't count.
Or no, every day counts. But are you like, oh no, I was up till 3:45 one
Oh,
morning?
no. I think the latest I will stay up is like midnight.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're like a fake
I'm a
late
responsible late
nighter.
nighter.
A responsible late nighter. Okay, that's good.
I've got
Anybody
a
else?
function that
What about you, Michael? You stayed up past midnight?
Oh, yeah.
Like regularly?
Yes.
Oh, gross. All right.
Sleep till I go to bed at 3.
Oh, I've been asleep for 4 hours by then. Like, that's wild. All right, this or that.
Okay, pancakes or waffles?
Give me a waffle. Like, I mean, you've got to have the pockets for the syrup and whatever topping. No, I'm a purist. I'll just go syrup and that's it. But like, you're always going to have a crisp to a waffle. But you know,
But
after
do you
a little
want
bit,
it crisp? You want to like bite into it and like cut your mouth?
I don't want it crunchy, but I want like a nice texture of like a little crunch and then a soft waffle.
Man, I'll tell you what, I'm going pancake all the way. My wife, my mother-in-law, like pancakes, it's breakfast. It's awesome. But I will say it would be different for my son. Like, he cooks Eggo waffles and doesn't cook them at like one or two at a time. It's like a handful of them at a time, and he'll just take them like in a paper towel and eat them in the car. But he would do waffles, but I'm pancakes. So we're 2 for 2. Let's see if we
for
get
2.
back on the same side or if we're different on the last one.
Sweet or salty?
For what? Like just in general? Like a snack?
Yeah.
Oh. Oof.
Like, for example, after dinner, if you're needing a
Well,
little
dessert
snack.
comes after dinner.
Dessert comes after dinner.
Well, okay, midday. If you're
Midday.
needing a little snack
Salty.
between lunch and dinner, you're going to go salty or
Salty.
sweet.
I think I'm going to lean towards sweet. I just have a bad sweet tooth.
Yeah, I have a sweet tooth too, but that's dessert. But if you're like in the afternoon, oh yeah, give me
See,
something that's savory.
You say you have a sweet tooth, but you always have candy in your office, and I never see you eat it. If
That's
that candy
true.
was in my office, it'd be gone in a week. I cannot have sweets in my
No,
office.
Lauren keeps my office stocked with candies. The other day, Aaron was sitting in there and she brought in the little Butterfingers. He's like, you don't know this is my favorite candy bar. And he's just eating them, like just the little ones. And so, yeah, no, I'm going savory. All right. So we are somewhat similar, but very different. So very
There
good.
you
Thanks,
go.
Bree, for that. Well, man, let's jump in here because we're about to look at probably, I would guess, Miles, one of the most familiar miracles. Even if you're not talking to like someone involved in church, someone following after Jesus, this would probably be something that would cross over a little mainstream, just especially in our part of the world, you know, which is the feeding of the 5,000, right? I mean, that's a pretty big deal. But there's a lot more going on than just
There is so much in here.
just making a little bit into a lot, right?
Right.
And so this has a ton of stuff in it that we're going to look at: leadership, rest, all of those things, just the sufficiency of Christ. And so I'm really excited. So start walking us through this.
Yeah. So what we're going to find, like when we open this up, is that the apostles have returned to Jesus. You know, it opens up in Mark 6 verses 30. Is that they're returning from the ministry? He sent them out. Now they're sharing, but they're exhausted. Like we see that they are returning and they are depleted.
Yeah, and because they've been on their own. He sent them out 6 teams of 2. They're going and doing all this. We get this little bit with Herod in there, but it seems like they're coming back from this ministry where they've been given authority at the beginning of Mark chapter 6 to cast out demons, which I can't imagine the spiritual emptying that would have to take. Like you said, healing the sick, dealing with people's infirmities, their pain, their chaos, crushing weight of life, and they're preaching the gospel. And so they're coming back. And so when you say they're exhausted, I mean, that is like the understatement of the year, right? Like these guys have done it on their own for the first time without Jesus being right there, and they're coming back and they're sharing everything with them. I mean, it's a big, big deal.
Right. And I think I'm going to hit a little bit on this too of, and I think you'll agree with this, ministry should be exhausting. Like the ministry that we've called to,
Every believer, not just
every
us
believer
at the
yes.
church.
Yeah, like that is what Paul writes in the Corinthian letters of, we've been given the ministry of reconciliation. We are all given ministry to do. And I'm a little bit in the perspective of not that we should be depleted at all times, but we should be bringing our best before the Lord. And so this should be something that resonates with a believer.
Well, and I like that too because you deal with tons of students, but I have 2 teenagers that live in my home, my kids, my son and my daughter. Both of them, athletics is a big part of their life. And so they do all the training, and that's part of it. And I love sports. But one of the things that we try to tell them every time they compete, whether it's in a race and you were an All-American in college, in a race or in a game or something like that, we tell them, leave it all on the court, leave it all on the track, leave it all, whatever you do. They were like, hey, cross the finish line, let the buzzer go off, and let us carry you off the court. That like you've given it everything you have. And that's a very similar approach that we should take to the ministry that God has called us to. When we think about dads leading their families, when we're talking about moms investing in their kids, and we're talking about buddies that are doing life together and accountability of going, hey, leave it all on the court, leave it all in that relationship, really pour out your life. And we see that these disciples have done that, and they come back kind of hobbling to Jesus. And Jesus' first words to him were, hey, come on, come away and catch your breath. Yeah. Let's talk about everything that's happening.
He's recognizing that there needs to be a time of, hey, we've got to recharge. We've got to be able to reset and be ready for this next mission that's going to happen, the next interaction. He's trying to pull them away and lead them to, hey, rest is good after pouring yourself out. There's limits.
Let me pick at a little something you're saying, because we were talking, for you guys watching right now or listening, we were talking beforehand about the generational gaps in the rooms, just what songs you would know and different TV shows. And we were kind of cutting up and laughing because I'm definitely the old man of this group currently right now. And so the word rest means different things to different generations. So for some of our senior saints and empty nesters listening to this, the word rest has a different connotation than it does for some of our college students and young adults. And so when Jesus invites them to rest, what is he inviting them to? Because for rest, a lot of people go, I'm shutting everything out. I don't call me on my phone. Don't interrupt me. Don't do anything. I'm going to lay down. I'm going to take a 6-hour nap. That's what rest looks like. And then we start thinking of, the pauses and the rhythms of life versus the Sabbath rest. So when you hear the word rest, what does that mean for you? What are you, and what filter are you running that through at your age, your demographic, your stage of life?
I've got to go through and see what I was raised as, the background that I came up in of my idea of rest was, okay, it's something after Sunday services, we're going to come back, take a nap, relax, and then maybe do some yard work or chores around the house and kind of reset for the week.
And that's what you grew up with?
That's what I grew up, yeah. Okay. And as I've studied scripture and I've looked and studied the Sabbath and seen what rest was actually intended to do, it's something that is allowing me an opportunity to pause, to reflect on the week, to be ready for the ministry God's got for me for the next week. What I'm preparing for the ministry I'm about to tackle.
So what are you resting from?
I'm resting from doing ministry of pouring myself out, spending time with the Lord to be rejuvenated, poured back into, to get ready to pour myself back out.
Yeah, I think one of the pitfalls that people fall into when they think about rest is they are resting maybe from the wrong thing. And they go, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to turn my brain off. And that's where we get into what's the doom scrolling,
yes,
or binging the Netflix or whatever. Oh my gosh, I just sounded like such an old person there. I'm going to head to the Walmart here in a minute.
That's so accurate, because that's where in
but they're resting from Jesus, not resting in Jesus.
Right.
And so we've got to be careful when we read Scripture to know what Jesus was inviting them to do. What were you going to say before I cut you off?
And that's where you student ministry, you've been out of the loop, and I'm not saying you are completely out of it, but you were in a different season of student ministry.
He just said I was out of the loop for everybody listening.
He was in the time when phones were introduced. iPhones were brand new, in student ministry. This is they've been raised on iPhones now. And they are used to, rest is I'm going to go doom scroll.
Yeah.
And it's becoming a new thing to where that is their form of rest.
Yeah.
And they have to be taught that. Like what I was taught of, nap after Sunday, now they're being taught that. And so we're having to change how we're teaching rest and Sabbath.
Because it's that idea of being poured out and I'm empty.
Right.
And so rest is refilling. And what are we filling with?
Correct. Yes.
I mean, it's kind of like, when you go for a run or something, which has been a while for me, but you go for a run and you come back, you don't want to drink a hot Dr. Pepper, right? That's not filling you up. You want a cold glass of water, right? And so I think sometimes when we rest, it's that refilling, but it's a lot of people want to pause and rest from Jesus, from fellowship, from, those finer points of growing in the Lord. Now, I'm not saying there's not time for a nap. I'm a big fan of a nap and a rest and kind of not being accessible all the time.
Yeah.
But I do think when he invites them, because it says in verse 30, they returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught, kind of giving this report. And Jesus' response is, come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. He says, for many were coming and going, and they didn't even have time to eat. And he's really kind of showing them their human limits.
Yeah.
And so with these first couple of verses, let me ask you a question or two, Miles. Are you up for that?
Yep.
All right, here we go. So why is rest often one of the hardest things for people in ministry or just life in general to prioritize? Why do we not prioritize rest in our life?
I think we have been inserted into such a busy culture. I think through it in the lens of my past year. I'm getting now to this end of the school semester to where, things are about to slow down. You have 2 kids, middle school, high school. You're never not busy.
Right.
And you work in ministry. So your life is double, always just busy.
Sure.
And so thinking through of, when I'm doing football ministry in the fall, there's football games every Friday. I need to be there with the team. That's technically the day off. And so then there's part of that. And then if there is, a serve day that's on a Saturday, all of a sudden we start getting this filled up. But am I intentionally taking time of like a half day before a football game? If I'm taking the afternoon after a Sunday, am I intentionally trying to put time back in to rest, to spend that time and fill back up with Christ?
Well, let me, because that's a good how. That's a good practical.
Okay.
But why are we not prioritizing rest? So for the average person listening right now, why do they stay busy, overcommitted, exhausted, and poured out all the time? Why do they not put rest as one of their things?
I would think either they haven't been taught like that rest is normal, that they've been in a setting to where that is the normative of just go, and never been taught how to slow down and how to be poured back into. Or maybe it's just I don't know how to say no, and I'm going to continue to fill that up.
That's where I was hoping you were going to go, because I do think for a lot of you, listen, I'm not trying to pick on anybody listening right now. I'm just trying to say some of you need to get more acquainted with the word no. And I'm not saying just use that at the church when we ask you to serve. I'm just saying, but no needs to be part of our vocabulary because I think we're afraid we're going to miss out. We're afraid of what people will think. We're afraid of how we will be judged or thought of or something like that. And we spend more time committing to things that we have no business being involved with when no is an appropriate answer. And I think that comes from our priorities not being correct. That we, instead of prioritizing, me spending time with my son, resting, going for a walk, a bike ride, because I can't keep up with him when he runs anymore. But but we'll commit to do this, that, or the other. And I just think for us, I think you hit the nail right on the head, Miles, of going, we don't want to say no, and we would rather be exhausted, overscheduled, overrun, and busy than prioritize something. And I think it comes from a lack of priority or a fear of what somebody would think if we said no. And that's just so wild that we would give up what we need so that others can have what they want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that crazy? Well, let me give you another question. Why does Jesus' invitation in this text to rest teach us about healthy rhythms? What does his invitation teach us? That if Jesus is asking them to rest, what should we learn from that?
We should learn that there needs to be time, that we have to go back to take time set aside, go back and have that rest, that it is important. It's something that Jesus modeled himself. It's something that he's modeling for the disciples. And it's something that he's setting forth in Scripture and outlining that it is something that we should incorporate into our everyday life. And so the tough part of that, of what does it teach us that we need to do rest, the practical side of that is we've got to learn how to do that in our own settings. Your season of rest is going to look different. Married, 2 kids. For me, single, about to get married, my rest looks different. And so part of that is going through that.
If you didn't catch that, that was real clear. I'm about to get married. He is on the countdown right now.
We're very close.
He's ready.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a good point for sure. You know, I think what I would get in addition to that is Jesus is not against rest. And it's not resting from Jesus, it's resting in Jesus. And so I think that's great. I mean, you did great job with that. So take us into the next part of the text.
We see rest is important, and then all of a sudden this rest seems to get interrupted. And so
Isn't that wild?
Jesus,
We just talked about how important it is.
It is, yeah.
And then it's going to get upside down.
But we're going to see something really cool that Jesus ties into this rest, this dependence on him. But yeah, so they leave by a boat. They're trying to get away to a private place, a desolate place.
Yeah, he says, come away. Let's get away by ourselves.
There's some really cool theology that's wrapped into that. But, you know, he's pulling them away, and then you're tired. We're emotionally drained. You're finally getting some space. And then not just a couple people. This is a massive crowd of thousands of people are waiting for Jesus here. The other side.
It's wild. They figure it out. But what I love about these crowds is if I just break it down to the core of what I interpret from every time we see a crowd show up is they want to be where Jesus is. Whether their motives are pure or not, if they just want to see a miracle or if they have a need that needs to be met or whatever, the thing is people are willing to stop what they're doing, run around a lake to the other side, be waiting for him because they just want to be where Jesus is. And when I think about how that applies to us today, Miles, I think so much of us would rather just turn our brain off than be where Jesus is. You know, our quiet time, our devotional time, whatever it is you call with your coffee with Jesus, however you, classify that, I think that's the first thing to go in our life rather than the first place to go.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of us, we just go, I don't have time for Jesus today. I don't have time for that. I woke up late. I've got this meeting. Oh my gosh, my boss asked me to flex again. I was planning this, but now I got to do this. And we get into that being the first place that we don't go. But these crowds were obsessed of going, I don't care what's going on right now. Yeah, I'm not going to the PTA meeting tonight because I don't know if you heard this. Jesus is on a boat right over there. We got to go.
Right.
And so I think for us, I love that because they just want to be wherever he is.
They do. But then you see Jesus, he has this interaction, and we see in Scripture that it talks about that he has this compassion on the crowd.
Oh, I love the word compassion.
If you looked in the Greek of what that word is, it's like...
okay, I felt like that was a veiled shot there.
No, it wasn't a veiled shot.
I know your degree.
I nerd out about this every time. There's always going to be a Greek word that I bring up when you bring me here. This splaginizomai, which, we're just going to sound like I said it right. Thank you. Yes, it sounds something. But it's something like a deep, gut-wrenching, like, compulsion that Jesus can't do anything. He sees that these sheep are lost, whether with the right motives or wrong motives, but they need direction. They need to be pointed in the right direction. And he feels like he just can't do anything but point them in the right direction. He has to.
And I love that his compassion was evoked for the reason of, I see sheep without a shepherd. Like, and if you know anything about shepherding, which most of us don't, we're not, shepherds by trade or anything like that. We know enough if you've been around the Bible. But it says he had compassion because they were like sheep without a shepherd. They were defenseless. They were leaderless. And can I just tell you this? I mean, that's one of the beauty of some of the things that we get to do within the church is we get to shepherd. And sheep don't always need more sheep to try to lead them. They need shepherds. And Jesus looks at them and has this great compassion. And the word is what?
Splaginizomai.
Yep, that one. That there's something deep within him that needs that. And what's crazy is he doesn't see these people as an interruption.
Right.
He just sees them as people in need.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we get caught by something. You see somebody going, you're like, oh man, this is going to mess up my schedule. This is going to, do this, that, or the
Yes.
other. And he had compassion that said they need something that he could provide.
Well, let me ask you something then, because on this interruption, because I think this would be an interesting perspective for, our audience, our people of our congregation to hear. What do, in your role or, in your faith, what interruptions reveal what's really happening like within your heart or the ministry you're doing?
Oh, this is going to be ugly. I mean, it's really going to be ugly. And so honestly, if we can be honest, just me and you, no one else, listening right now, except for everybody listening right now. I think what interruptions do is they expose your heart.
Okay.
Because I say that because it really shows your priority. It shows how committed you are to your purpose. Because I can tell you, it also exposes your love or lack of love for people.
Okay, that's
so when I think about if it's late, we already talked earlier that I'm an early morning person. So like 9:30, Clint is done with the day. If one of my kids comes in and is like, Dad, I need to talk. Like for me, that's not a thing. I'm like, okay, let's do this. That is not something, because I have compassion. I want to know and I love them very much. But it is different if my phone rings at 10 o'clock and it's somebody that know's calling to complain or frustrated about something, and you're like, do I want to answer this? Do I not?
Yeah.
But I do think when interruptions happen, it really exposes the intention of your heart and your level of love for people. And so when I look at this passage, I see Jesus. He's trying to get his guys who are wiped out to a place to kind of fill their cup and hear what's going on, and people show up. He doesn't say, golly, again, can we not get a minute by ourselves? This is what's best for my 12 disciples. He looks at them and there's something that comes inside him that's the what?
Splanchnizomai.
Yeah. He has that, and he looks at them and going, hey, they are sheep without a shepherd.
Well, that's good to hear, because that gives us a little bit, for those that aren't in your role every day to see what do interruptions look like for you. How does that, how do you continue to lead the sheep of Concord and continue to do your day-to-day role? So I think that's really helpful for us to hear that. Then you see, well, you've already talked about a little bit of Jesus's compassion. It stood out. It was something that, it's not the normative interaction of an everyday person.
Right.
Because we want to continue doing that same ministry, want to keep staying the same route. You don't want to be interrupted, the goals that you've got to do.
Yeah. Well, I think too, so I'm not, I can do a little bit of Greek and Hebrew, definitely not to your level. I know that's something you've studied for years. But for me, I did look up this word compassion, and the way it was defined was this: a deep awareness of another's suffering coupled with urgent, motivated desire to alleviate it. That it's not just an awareness, it is a motivated urgency to alleviate their suffering.
Yeah.
And so when Jesus looks at them, he sees them sheep without a shepherd, without protection, without leadership, without guidance. He has this deep movement inside of him that's aware of their suffering, their need, and he's deeply moved to alleviate it.
He's got to do something about it.
He has to do something. And I just, as a pastor, that's something that is what carries you through. When you see someone in your flock, in our church, suffering, that the Lord, by his grace, allows compassion in my heart or other people's hearts, your heart, and there's this urgent desire to alleviate that suffering. And I think that's what we see with Jesus here, that he's not going to send this crowd away. He's going to try to meet the need that they have in that moment.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure the people listening, I mean, you guys are, whether you're on the treadmill or the Peloton or you're driving to work, whatever you're doing right now, I mean, I think there is something in that where there's been moments where, because of what Christ has done in your life, when you see another person suffering, there is something inside of you that has an urgent motivation to alleviate that suffering. That's compassion. And many times those moments, I don't know if you've experienced that, many times those moments are so inconvenient. They are not scheduled. They just kind of run up on you. And I think that goes back to that first question you asked of going, hey, it exposes your heart. Are you ready to minister whenever the Lord allows an interruption?
Yeah.
And is your heart moved with compassion? And I hope that's I hope that's everybody's experience with Concord, that you never feel like a burden, that you feel like, hey, there are people who see me, who see my suffering, and their desires to help me walk through that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you this, we're not a perfect church, but I hope that is the reputation of our church is
Right.
people are not interruptions. They're not impossible, but they are an opportunity for us to exercise the compassion that God's given us to help. And so I hope that's been your experience, and I hope you will be an extension of that experience, that every person, not just with the ministry staff, but with every member, when they run into somebody from Concord, they're like, oh, I recognize that. That's the compassion of Christ. They're willing to be interrupted. Man, I'm preaching a sermon right now. Let's go back to the podcast. So as the day goes on, the disciples start thinking practically, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They started thinking through, all right, we're tired. We've got to, it's end of the day. We need some rest. Jesus, send these people home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we got to get them out of here. Like,
Because they're tired.
They're tired, yeah.
And they're like, Jesus, this is great. I love your compassion. I thought we were going to rest. Can you get these people out of here?
Yes. I'm thinking through a student weekend. Sunday, I've been up, slept for maybe 3 or 4 hours total. And I'm like, I'm ready to go home. I'm ready for a nap.
And so their concern makes sense,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
They're like, we can't always be accessible, Jesus. Like, we have to take care of ourselves some as well.
then
But Jesus responds very
dinner time.
differently than that,
Yeah. It's dinner time. He was like, all right, let's get these people something to eat.
which felt impossible.
Yes.
They were
Yeah.
like, wait a second. Where are we going to get food to feed all these people?
Yeah, number one, is this even available? Number two, financially, this just doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know, there's the studies of a year's wages, 2 years, however many people
There must have been an accountant in the group and some type A folks, because they were like, Jesus, look, I've seen you raise the dead.
Yep.
But feeding these people, it's not cost effective. It's not ready. Like, there's no way this can happen. But I love when we see Jesus in impossible situations.
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking about some of the things that we're seeing right now with, we've got a thing with our Hope Center. Mm-hmm. Incredible ministry that's been running for over 20 years. They meet real physical needs in our community. They put clothes on people's back. They put food in their kitchens. They pray for them. They love on them.
Yep.
Well, we need a new space, right? We need a bigger space. We need a new space. And for us, we see impossible, but with Christ, he sees an opportunity, right?
Exactly.
And so they're asking, how do we feed this many people?
Yeah, and they think through, and they're trying to think through the tangible side of it. But Jesus, like I kind of hinted earlier, there's this urge to point them to, are you going to lean in on my providence? Are you focused in on what you can do? Or are you focused what my infinite power is able to do?
And if you go back into our lives, many of the times that we tell the story, those watershed moments for us are times where it was impossible in our life. I mean, you guys have got that, right? Like, you've got impossible times in your life where God showed up and you're like, what?
Yeah.
I mean,
it makes
that's what
sense.
we remember is not our inadequacy. We remember his sufficiency. And so that's a big deal. Let me ask you a couple of questions before we go to our ministry break here in just a second. Why is our first instinct to focus on what we lack instead of what God can do? Like, why do we so quickly lose our faith when we run up next to something difficult?
You said something a couple of days ago in a meeting that we had in a group where we're talking about this wrestling of this spiritual sense. We're living spiritual lives, honoring Christ, spiritual gifts and everything like that. But we live in a very tangible, temporal world of like, we have these very, this cushion all around us that surrounds us and almost kind of puts a barrier to prevent us from looking further past that.
Sure.
And so
Yeah.
they're thinking through, Jesus has given them an opportunity of leading them to a spiritual moment, but they're surrounded of, there's these thousands of people. You're asking us to feed them. All we've known is, hey, we're going to buy food, we're going to make food or whatever. It seems impossible. And so I think very much like they're in the same sense we are. We're surrounded by, hey, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to pay the car bill? Kids have, sports fees
X,
for
Y,
travel,
and Z,
X,
yeah.
Y, Z. There's everything. But what if there's something that's further on that we're not seeing, that God's
Yeah.
leading us to a spiritual moment
That's
of trust,
so good.
independence?
And just as a secondary thing, the fact that you listened to me in a meeting is so awesome. And I did not say it that eloquently, and so I'm glad the Spirit of God taught you something, and that's good. Well, let me ask this. What situations in life, I mean, maybe for you and Caitlin that y'all are going through right now, what are some situations in life that tend to expose our scarcity mindset? Do you know what I mean by scarcity mindset?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
My scarcity mindset right now, and to give, as I'm getting ready to get married in a month, I'm thinking through, is my fiance, my soon-to-be wife, is going to be in medical school. We're going to be on one salary, and I'm trying to get in the mindset. I'll be a little vulnerable here. Of, I'm thinking through, how am I going to be able to provide? How am I going to continue to put a roof over our head, put food on the table to provide for us?
Put gas in your car.
Gas.
Good grief.
Yeah. Gas in the car. In reality, maybe I should be asking the question of, God, how can I continue to trust in your providence? How can I shift my focus of, God, you've carried me through 27 years of my life so far. How are you going to continue to do that now? What are you leading me to trust in you now? And so in that mindset, that is what I'm trying to shift my focus into for this next season of life.
Yeah, I think for right on what you said is I think the situations that expose our scarcity mindset more than anything are the situations where we don't have control, where we can't control.
Absolutely.
Because for the most part in our life, we can do a good job of controlling most of what I can control when I get up and where I go and this and that.
Right.
But when things get outside of our control, that's when we start grasping at what we've got and trying to build up. And,
death gripping it.
And so that's good, man. That's great insight. Well, let's take a break real quick. Let's head over to our ministry highlight. Y'all check this out.
All right, another ministry highlight here for you guys. We have Mr. Michael Johnson here with us.
That feels so weird. Don't say Mr. Michael Johnson.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me, just a few questions, short and sweet. How long have you been on staff here at Concord?
Oh, gosh. 18 months-ish.
18 months.
19
okay.
months.
Okay.
Give or take.
Yeah. Where were you
6 or
serving?
7
Where were you
months.
serving before then?
I was at Riverbend.
At Riverbend.
in Gainesville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. And tell everyone I'm sure if they are at a service, they can probably guess what you do here on staff, but there is some other stuff that you are over and oversee besides just stuff on main stage. So obviously, worship pastor here, you lead our worship morning, our
Pastor
Sunday morning
of worship
services.
and experience.
Excuse me, pastor of worship and experience.
You gotta
So
get that other
how
part
about you
in
tell
there.
them what
that
the
means.
and experience means? Yeah.
Yeah, no. So obviously, very much so involved Sunday mornings with worship team and service flow production, all of that. But also helping out with youth on Wednesday nights as well.
Okay.
Been leading there, but also trying to build a team to make that self-sustainable, as well as just giving younger generations a chance to learn whether that's music or how to sing or how to lead people, how to lead teams, things like that. But then also outside of that, things like this, producing podcasts, getting all the recording taken care of, doing all the post-edit work.
Overseeing website, social media.
Social media, all
stuff.
that. And then also graphics. So if there's, now I don't always that's actually rarely that I actually make the graphics, thankfully.
We probably don't want that.
But no, just kind of overseeing it. So we hire out with contractors. And so just kind of being the middleman for all communication for all that kind of stuff. So
how long you went to Truett? Correct.
Yeah.
So how long
Good
have
old Truett
how long have you
McConnell.
been doing full-time, like in a full-time ministry role?
I think about 12 years now.
Okay.
I think if once I get to 24 months here, I think it's 12 years.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, what do you like to do for fun outside of the office?
A lot of things. One, the most thing that I do for fun is music.
Okay.
Which is interesting because that's a lot of what I do here.
Okay.
But music, whether that's recording, producing music for other people, things like that.
Yeah.
So I love doing a lot more like tech work alongside that too.
Yeah.
So I also like to build things electronically.
Like what? Oh, electronically.
So like one of the 2 amps that I use on Sunday mornings I made.
Awesome. That's cool.
And like half the pedals on my pedal board I made.
That's cool.
So like overdrives, different compressors, different stuff like that. So
and you You're on another podcast pretty consistently, right? That you tell just briefly, what is that podcast about?
Yes, it's the title of the name of the podcast is Baggage Claim, actually, and it's a buddy of mine, actually one of my mentors, who walked through with me not only just in ministry, but also very close to me as I was walking through divorce and a lot of this stuff that I was going through, trying to heal, going through that. And the main premise of the podcast is to be healthy. They break it down to 3 main tiers. One is you personally, then you as a couple in a relationship, and then family. And so breaking down health to be able to be the best you can be, to be the best you God called you to be and God's made you to be. And then that follows down into, you and your relationship and then your family.
Cool. That's cool. Okay, last question for you.
Yeah.
If you, obviously you're talking to our church family and anyone listening. If you were going to say, hey, this is the one thing right now that I would love our church family to be praying about specifically, what would you say that is?
Ooh, there's a few things, and this is also going to lean more into worship, because that's my heart. That's where I'm at, and what I love doing. But I'd say pray for a passion. Pray for a passion, because one thing I when you look at when the Holy Spirit moves in any time, you look in Genesis, it says, the Spirit hovered over the waters, and God said, let there be light. He created everything. In the New Testament, you see in Acts, when Pentecost is coming down, it says the Holy Spirit blew through the room like a rushing wind, so much so that people were like, what is this noise? And then tongues of fire came down. And so I see whenever I've seen a move of the Spirit in the Bible, incredible things happen. And it's contagious. It's not just that incredible things happen and then it's boom, end of it, it's done. No, it's contagious. It spreads, it multiplies like wildfire. And so for me is to say, man, can we just have a passion, a Spirit-filled passion about us as we go about our lives, as we worship, as we sing, as we live, as we interact with people. Because that's something that can't be quenched. It's something that can't be turned down, and it just explodes and multiplies.
That's cool. Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate. I know a lot of times, especially for this podcast, you're usually sitting over there and recording. We have had you on as a guest with Clint, but thank you so much. I so much appreciate. One of the things, and that I talk a lot to our other staff about what you do, is I'm never worried about something that you're going to sing from stage or something that you may say, because it is always so spiritually grounded and just solid theologically worded, and that doesn't always happen in worship ministry. That doesn't always. Sometimes it can get very touchy feely or and it's. But I don't ever worry about the songs that you choose, and they may not even be songs that I know. Me and Clint will talk sometimes. I have no idea what that song is, but it's theologically grounded. It's solid. It speaks truth, and I'm never worried about what's going to come out through a song. And so I appreciate that, especially as a pastor here. So thank you for that. Thank you for what you bring to our staff. And thanks for being on our ministry highlight today. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right, great to hear from them on that. Now, Miles, we are back in Mark chapter 6. Now, this is the part that most people are super familiar with.
Correct. Yeah. This is where we start to see, as you were talking about the Hebrew Happy Meal. Jesus asked them, how many loaves do you have? What do we have accessible?
Yeah, and it's a couple of loaves, 5 loaves and 2 fish. And this isn't the Thanksgiving style portions, right? I mean, this is a small portion. But Jesus takes it, he blesses it, he breaks it, he gives it back to the disciples to distribute.
Now, yes, and I want to take a moment here just because there's some really cool theology that, I want to point people in that right direction to here. Because you see, specifically here in the passage, it says he puts them down in groups on the green grass. Okay. Now, keep in mind, he was bringing them to a desolate place. Now, whether this is desert, whether this is just maybe a desolate field or whatever, but when you start looking and seeing there is pictures that is tying this back to creation, tying it back to the Garden of Eden.
So if you're following along with us, that's verse 39. It says that Jesus commanded them all to sit down in groups on the green grass. So show us the tie to the Old Testament.
Yes. So what you find here is in this groups, you look at this word, and I'm not going to pronounce this one, but essentially it's putting them into plots, putting them into order, in reference to gardening, gardening plots. And so what you see here as you look back in similarities to the Garden of Eden creation is that before Jesus creates, before he is multiplying, there is order to it. And so you start seeing that God has order before creation. It's not that we serve a God of chaos. It is a God of order.
Wow.
That there is ties to that. And so just something really cool I wanted to point out because there is intentionality. It's not like, hey, you 73 over here, you 540, like, hey, get into groups. We're going to do this in a specific fashion.
Yeah, he says they sat down in groups, verse 40, by hundreds and by 50s. There was organization, intentionality to it.
Yes, it wasn't random.
Well, I think that's something important for us to remember just as Christians, that sometimes just the way the world seems so chaotic and out of control, and we somehow impress that on our view of how God works, that it's chaotic, it's reactionary, but our God is all-knowing. He is intentional. He is powerful. He has a plan that he is working out, and the tie to creation of it wasn't just a spur of the moment, oh, we might do this, oh, how is this going to work? It's God had a plan, an order, a way, and I think there's great comfort for the believer in that knowledge.
Absolutely.
That God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and is intentional in how he does things. That makes the good and the bad easier to walk through.
Absolutely.
And so he's got these 5 loaves, this 2 fish, this little happy meal. He looks up at heaven and gives it a blessing, breaks the loaves, and then gives to the disciples set before the people. And he divided the fish among them as well. Then verse 42, and all ate and were satisfied. They didn't just get a little bit.
Right.
I mean, full bellies, right? Like they had every need met. But then it says that, we'll get to that in a minute, that there were leftovers, but Mark says they were satisfied. Big deal.
Yeah, it is. They were fully, it was not just a little snack to get them on. It wasn't a little Lunchable. It was a meal. They were satisfied.
Lunchable.
Lunchable, yeah. So let's dive into this for just a second here. When we think through of kind of this providence, this being able to provide beyond satisfaction, why do you think God often starts with what feels insufficient, of what we are not able to provide, what we are not able to tangibly accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm looking just broad strokes, Miles, I think a lot of it comes back to developing a dependence, not independence, but developing dependence on God, of going, I need him to do what I can't do.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to that as well. If we look at not just what he does for the masses, but what I think about where they got that 5 loaves and 2 fish, of going, somebody was saying, hey, listen, this is what I've got. And you look around and there's 5,000 plus, because it says 5,000 men, and you're assuming there's women and kids and stuff there as well. So thousands upon thousands of people, and someone brings their little bit. And I think for you who are listening, I think sometimes we feel like what we bring to the table is insufficient, and it is. Okay, I don't want you to get twisted. It was insufficient to impact that crowd. But what we bring to the table that's insufficient, this little bitty loaves or fish, in the hands of the master, it's a completely different story.
Yeah.
His blessing, his hands takes the little bit that we've got. And so I think of all of you out there going, well, I don't have much to offer. I can just do this little thing. And I think about so many of our teams, Miles, that serve our church, that most people would go, well, that's not a big deal, until they experience that little thing that God uses in a big way. I mean, we have all kinds of teams, our benevolence teams that help meets needs, our Hope Center, our bereavement teams, our decorating committee, some of our missions folks, and they go, I don't have a whole lot, but you put what you've got into the hands of the Lord, it's a whole different story, for sure. But I think insufficiency helps us develop a dependency on one who can make it sufficient.
That's really good. I like that. Now, talking about that, there was this act of generosity of I don't have very much, but here it is. Almost a small act of obedience, of whether it was sarcastic of, you know what, you want to feed them with 5 loaves and 2 fish? here you go, or whether it was authentic of, hey, this is all I have, but I'm entrusting this to you.
Sure.
That started with an act of obedience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think through a story of you talked about your time at Prestonwood. You had a kid that came up that worked at Chick-fil-A on tithing and giving. And he's like, hey, I make however very much. I tithe, I don't know if it was like $20. And he goes, it may not be much, but I'm being faithful to the Lord. It's that small act of obedience.
I love that story.
I love it too. It's great. How have you seen, maybe like in the past year, either in your own life or an action like in the church of Concord, of a small act of obedience that maybe led to something really cool of God's providence?
Yeah, the first thing I think of, Miles, is what we're experiencing with baptisms right now. And so we're in this weird thing that since like March 1st, just where we are right now while we're recording this podcast, we're at something like 28 baptisms in 11 weeks.
Wow.
And I think when I think about that, it's one small act of obedience that someone reads the word of God and they said, as a believer, this is something the Lord asks me to do. Mm-hmm. And then they have to wrestle through of, maybe their story is they've just gotten saved, but they're scared of being in front of people. Mm-hmm. And they have to confront that fear. Or they've been saved for a long time and haven't gotten their baptism on the right side of their salvation. And so they're having to wrestle through this. And they take that one step of obedience going, God, what you've given me is a testimony. This one little testimony, I'm going to give it. And then what we see is God multiply it. And somebody sees themselves in that story. It was after service on Sunday. We had baptized again on a Sunday morning. And this guy grabs me after church and he's like, I got to tell you what God's doing in my life and I need to get baptized. But just week after week, they're seeing this. And so we're seeing these small little acts of obedience that's moving in people's life and causing them to read and causing them to pray and causing them to confront the things they're struggling with and going, well, if they're obedient, I can be obedient. And it's just starting this movement of courage. It's starting this movement of sharing. It's starting a movement of obedience in our church, starting a discipleship process, all these things that people say they long for. I want depth. I want discipleship. I want obedience. I want to read. I want to pray. And it takes little small act of obedience. That's just one way I see it in our church right now. And I think about this where they grab this little Happy Meal verses of stuff and going, hey, there's just this little bit, but watch what God can do with it. And now this has been echoed for generations and generations and generations of the miraculous power of Jesus.
It is a powerful picture. You see this, and we'll go now of, the dependence into the abundance of this. The powerful movement, the powerful picture of he's providing for the people out of this small act of obedience. Now they have a ton left over.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a big thing too, because you start getting into talking about abundance. You start getting into God providing more than you need. People get really scared as you start skating the line of like some prosperity gospel and stuff like that. But what you see in the text, all right, let's go to the text, is there was compassion that was motivating to alleviate a suffering. There was a need that arose. A very small thing that was given, put into the hands of our Savior, who provided until they were satisfied, and then there was stuff left over. I mean, listen, be careful, beware of prosperity-based theology, okay? Like I will say that. We're not the name it and claim it prosperity gospel people, but you do see a God who provides, satisfies, and there is abundance left over in this text. And I think it's great. And I got to tell you, I don't know, let me ask you this. I wish this would have been in this or that with Bree of, do you prefer the hot meals or the leftovers? I am a leftovers person. There are times with certain meals, I prefer the leftover to when it being cooked originally. And I'm about the only person that eats leftovers, but sometimes in my house, but there is something sweet to a leftover, and there's abundance, there's extra, there's provision again. If I run home for lunch to let the dog out and you go and they're like, oh, there's leftovers, Lauren had cooked and this was great. And hey, I get this again. I think there's some neat things to think through as long as it's tied to the biblical text in the correct understanding and exposition of the passage. There's this idea of abundance and and stuff being left over. It's
Absolutely.
a powerful picture for sure.
It is, because you look into it as well, and there's some symbolism of that too, the abundance of that, 12 baskets, there's 12 baskets of abundance. And then
and I don't know, because it doesn't tell us in the text, but it's almost like these disciples who are worn out. They bring this stuff to Jesus. They get it. He multiplies it. They're passing it out. They're doing ministry and they're exhausted. But I kind of picture it like this. This is not what the text says, but I think of it as all 12 of those guys holding a basket that's just overflowing.
Yeah.
And they're just looking at it, holding it, going, thousands of people have eaten and they're like, I can't eat anymore. And they're just standing there holding it.
What do I do? It's almost like all right, here I have the fishes and loaves. What do I do? And now it's multiplied, and they're having a massive quantity.
Yeah, it's
and
just
what do I do?
Wild to think about how that could have, happened.
Absolutely.
But if he can provide for the crowd, he can provide for us as well. Well, this has been a great study, Miles. But let's give those that are listening or watching right now a couple of takeaways. Let's kind of land this plane. Jet fuel, y'all always get the pun there. Let's land this. Let's take off.
Yep.
We love that. But give us a couple of things from Mark chapter 6, verses 30 through 44. That we need to think through.
There's definitely some to consider as we go through, we study, and we look at the importance of the takeaways. I think we're going to the very beginning of the rest as he's taken them to the desolate place. Are we living in healthy rhythms that have rest and dependence on the Lord? Not just something that we're taking a break from Christ, but taking a break to abide in Christ. The healthy living of that. Then going on we talked about interruptions, specifically in ministry, that they never come at the most opportune times. Do I see the interruptions as inconveniences, or do I see them for opportunities to have the same compassion that Christ did?
And give us the Greek word for compassion again.
Splagonomai.
Oh, man. Y'all hear that? If y'all don't know this by now, that's a big deal. I love that question, though. Do I see church member, student, young adult, married couple, empty nester, whoever's listening right now, do you see the interruptions as inconveniences or opportunities to exercise the Christ-given compassion inside of you? That's such a great thing for all of us to think through. And lastly,
I think the last one, and this is one that I'm wrestling with myself, so this is not like hey, I've got this master, but am I focused on the limitations that I'm experiencing? Or am I trying to death grip it? Am I trying to just grab what's around me and hang on to that? Or am I letting Christ's sufficiency, his abundant provision take over? Am I trusting in that of what he has provided for in years past?
Yeah.
Am I leaning in on that?
I love that. And I love that. Well, guys, I hope you have enjoyed our time with the Jet Fuel podcast today, working through Mark chapter 6. Once again, we're so thankful for all of you guys who give us time and you study and pray through and walk through this. And we will see you guys next time on Jet Fuel.